And welcome back again, ladies and gentlemen, to the Upsurge Premier League Day 2 of the Quarterfinals. Right here on Upsurge Esports. I will be host for the evening, as always, Ravish, the most ravishing man on the internet. And I'm joined here yet again by my side by, y'all already know who it is, bro. It's the man, the myth, the absolute hunk of a legend, bro.
Jeez,
Senior Beat Down Boulevard, the toughest street in town.
Are we just taking turns singing the whole song? Because I think you are due for one.
I have not done it yet, but I won't do it right now though. That's not yet. You know what, bro? Convince me enough, and I just might.
Wow. You should do it.
Wow, I'm convinced. Okay, so
you're welcome, chat.
No, not right now. But because you know what, there are more important matters at hand. Beatdown, as you know, it is obviously another day, another plane. Michael Jordan said that, but so did Gandhi, and which also means that we also have another guest with us too.
That's true.
That being, we do have the lovely Miss Kari Wave, Vine historian, PhD, and of course here to take all of our jobs in broadcasting. Welcome aboard, Kari.
Yeah, I just installed League of Legends today. Did I say that right? League of Legends.
Mm-hmm. Some prefer League of Legos, but I think you're on the right. Lego.
Yeah. My favorite champion's the guy that spins. He shouts something, and then he spins. So that's good. I'm getting really good at this. Yeah, right. No, Garen, you idiot. Come on. I give you so many context clues. It can't be that hard.
I was trying to switch it up real quick. I'm sorry. Give me a second.
Yeah, no, but for real, I installed League of Legends 9 years ago today, and it has been a long road, and I wish I could quit. I wish I knew how to quit her.
Wow, I'm so sorry. You know what? Let's just all relish in the fact and revel within what League of Legends has done to us. Beatdown, how long have you been part of this game?
What month is it? Like a year and 2 months.
Wow.
What?
I also wish I could quit.
Yeah, already after a year.
Yeah, it's okay. It's fun though. It's fun.
Yeah, it's been since 2014.
Have you ever played I will describe why League of Legends is fun. If you've ever had a game where your Nexus was at 1 health, you clutch it up, and you guys hold on somehow, winning fight after fight, and you somehow actually end up coming back and winning, that euphoria that you feel, like that's what I'm talking about. That's League of Legends, bro.
No, I haven't.
It is, bro. That's the shit I do like.
It's been so long since I felt the embrace of another human being.
I don't want to get into that.
We don't want to talk about that.
Yeah, let's not bring up any sort of subject for us or the audience as well, right? But what we do want to talk about though is the teams that we have going into tonight, bro. What's going to be Striking Vipers versus Revival. To absolute UPL staples, Striking Vipers have been an absolute resurgence with the season coming back from an 0-7 with their split to now being 4-2 in the groups and looking at a chance to go into the semis. Revival on the other end. They were close to becoming second seed. I believe they were second seed in the previous season. And looking at it right now, after a couple of roster changes, a little bit of back and forth movements there now. They're not looking to reestablish themselves as a top tier roster. As one thing which I remember one of the coaches, Shikara, consistently mentions to me and wants to get across as always, is remember what we did. Beatdown, do you remember what they did?
I don't know. They did a lot of things. Like I'm going to need specifics, to be honest. Was it replace their bot lane, switch their jungler, play for Sudsy? I don't.
Man, look, bro, it's not my. This isn't my job. I just throw things to you, and then you're supposed to sound smart while saying them, bro.
All right, no problem. Ask me again, and I got a better answer. I promise.
Okay, cool. There's something that the coach always said here, Beatdown. Is that one guy on the desk, Beatdown Boulevard? I don't like him, bro. I don't know why he keeps appearing to wake out.
Yeah, deserved. That's pretty deserved. I gotta give him that one. I don't know why they keep bringing me back on here either, but. To answer your actual question, remember what they did is it was make second place last season, if I'm remembering correctly. They lost to the season champions in ISU, who, well, they're not playing tonight, so it's not important. But they are playing against Striking Vipers, who I think Hyper has a real sweet graphic for us with that regard too, because they Well, they weren't in finals last year. In fact, they didn't even make playoffs. They didn't even win a single game. But look at that, 0-8, and now they end up going 4-2 and actually make it to the playoffs. Like, that's an insane development in such a short amount of time.
Mm-hmm. And we were also talking to Striking Viper just a little bit ago as well, which I believe our producers just told us too. They're only one game out of being first in the group. But consider this is quarters, right? So this is pretty much just do or die for them, as it is for so many of these teams. Is what matters. Now, Cardi, going to you first. What were your impressions of the roster that we just talked to? You know, it's looking at, because like for what it sounds like, these guys they don't seem like an 0-8 roster. They seem like a top tier team.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the things that really stood out to me is a lot of teams, you can tell there's not a lot of like team cohesion, you know, like there's a lot of like big ego glory for the one guy that's really good, and everybody kind of rallies around that big personality, you know, like kind of like a Demonte figure that they have, that dynamic. But these guys all were like, they were all, you know, defaulting to each other. Everybody was talking the same amount. And it seemed to me like this is one of those teams that knows that the success of League of Legends, being that it is a team game, I know that's a shock to everybody, is communication. They're all pretty charming, I'm not gonna lie, but they're also really good at communicating, and I think that that's one of those things that actually genuinely will lead to the success of a team. And it's pretty easy to fix. So you swap out a couple different roles, find a few people that fit, find a great shot caller or two. And you've got yourself a winning team. So I'm really excited to watch these underdogs, especially. I think this is the first time they're going to be getting any real recognition, like publicly, for their growth. So to see them on stream, I think is going to be really cool, and they're hungry for it. So
they certainly are. And another thing too to note is after talking to them, which is what we were doing earlier on in the day, they kind of talked about how, they never really made it onto stream. And now that they've made it into playoffs, it's finally getting that recognition you talked about. They also expressed to us that because of that communication that you highlighted, they feel really confident in their team fighting. This is a specific thing that I wanted to bring up, because I think when you're against a team like Revival, where they usually play to mid, they play for Sudsy, and they team fight extremely well. I think that's one of the biggest things you're going to have to get on lock to be able to actually come out on top here in this particular series. So I think that was really promising and dispelled some of my doubts going into tonight.
That's not for the biggest thing, right? Because considering they're finally here on the biggest stage right here at UPL after making it so far, a bunch of roster changes later on, Striking Vipers are looking to show up and show out. But up against these roster that is Revival, although they've had a couple of changes too. Let's go into, what we're thinking about going into this Revival game. What versus Striking Vipers game, what our impressions are, what the outcomes might be. Because like you're saying, Revival, no stranger to these playoffs, and plus they also have Sudsy, who's really good at the game, so that works out.
Yeah, that is certainly one way to put it there. And again, that's how they like to play. They play for Sudsy, and it's the reason they actually swapped their jungler early on into the season. Now they have Pulp, who now with some time has gotten a lot more space to gel with the team, as they wanted a jungler who could play for Sudsy. They play for the mid lane, and they basically win or lose through their mid laner. And more often than not, though, he shows us why they put so much faith in him. Like, he's a very skilled player, and that's why I think, I was even going to talk about how side selection is super important going into game one, because, if you're facing a team like Revival, you got to win through mid. You got to secure a really good mid matchup so that, your ZMT can show up and actually kind of have the space to make plays, but also so you can shut down Sudsy at the same time, because that's the best way to beat Revival.
Now, you say that like shutting down Sudsy is something that just pretty much anybody can do, right? It's like I'm gonna go in and like press the off button and like you're done. It's over.
No, nothing like that. That's crazy. Sudsy's good. There's a reason they play through.
Exactly. About the other end for Striking Vipers here, the card we were talking to before, they seem ready and prepared. So with that in mind, as to what the draft might be, because they said how Revival flexes their flex picks, and suddenly that's all they got going for them. Tell me about your predictions. Who do you have today in this best of three? Your numbers 10-0, 5-0. What is it?
Gosh, this is a lot of pressure. So I actually was talking to one of our producers earlier, and I put it as 2-0 for Revival. This was before we talked to the Striking Vipers, and I learned a little bit about their play style and their comp. And now I'm hesitant to make any prediction at all. You know how I feel. I'm a coward. First and foremost, I'm a coward. But second of all, I kind of like those guys on Striking Vipers, so I would hate to vote against them. Why don't I just call it somebody's gonna take the Nexus, and see, he put it. The producer put it on there. See, now I've dug my grave.
You've been outed.
Yeah, but
Immediately.
regardless of whether Striking Vipers win or lose, I think that we've got something really special here. And I also, okay, listen, I know you didn't ask for my opinion. I'm trying to avoid the fact that I made this prediction before I, got to know that team very well. I think a team comp centered around one person is an inconsistent, at best, team, and their winning is generally, on or off depending on that person's game, and nobody wins 100% of their League of Legends games. So it's a crackable strat. It is a crackable strat. I think personally that Striking Vipers, if they can crack them, they can win them. So best of luck.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. I'm not going to change my prediction, but it made my prediction sting a lot more, because after talking with them, like, man, these guys are great.
They're great, and I think they have what it takes.
And truthfully, I'll give some credit to Ravi, because I think his might end up being a little bit more accurate. Because like the big concern I had going into today, and like I said, some of these doubts I have that did ultimately get dispelled, was what are you going to do about their playstyle and playing through Sudsy? Like, yeah, I agree it's inconsistent, but it's worked for Revival really well, especially here in UPL. It's gotten them very far time and time again. So it's difficult for me to say that they can actually just kind of overcome it just like that. I think giving them a game makes sense. I think the way they are going to go into tonight, especially again starting on red side, is really important. And realistically, there is a world where they win game one and can turn that into another potential game. Because the thing with Revival is their streaky is not the word I'm looking for, but momentum is kind of a big thing for them. And losing game one does tend to hurt them a little bit in longer series as well. It's something we've seen in the past.
Well, let's see if Revival can continue to build that momentum, bro. It's like, can I say so many times, because I believe in it strongly, because like you were saying before beatdown, right? So many factors do generally contribute into the performance that we're going to see out of them today. So can they do it? I don't know. But I say it 4 times because considering we're about ready to see the other 4 faces within today, that being 2, because Dean Rebel Fox has so much personality that he's enough for 4 casters. Exactly. There you go. You finally.
Yeah, sorry. I got it. But then there's 5, right? Because Dean is 4, Travesty is 5.
Counting's hard. You don't do math on stream. I think that was a.
That's the
right.
golden rule of broadcasting across the board. So I'll pass it off to our less than 3 caster, Rebel Fox and Travesty, to take us into game number 1.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Upsurge. We're here in the UPL, where the action is at an all-time high. And for that, you can count us in. My name is Travesty. I am joined here by Rebel Thoughts. Rebel, we got a fun one today. It's going to be an absolute banger.
It feels disingenuous to call this a fun one, because every series we get to cast together is always a fun one, Travis, because of course I'm with you. But this is a very special matchup because we have quarterfinals, we got Striking Vipers coming in, and of course we get to cover another Revival series together. And it's bound to be an absolutely fantastic little set between these two to get these teams further into playoffs, which we're just kicking off here in the UPL.
Yeah, and I'm really excited just because this meta has been so fun to watch, Rebel. Like, honestly, the injection, you and me have been talking about it a bit off stream and whatnot, the injection of AP junglers, we got a variety, and it's shaking up everything. Everybody's able to have a little bit more freedom in certain picks, and it's just like, wait a second, this is so much fun. Pick and ban is fantastic. And with these 2 teams, man, they both got players out there that like to play a little bit aggressive. You got these players that could have these niche picks that now all of a sudden are viable. So I'm so excited for tonight.
Anybody who's known Sudsy as long as we have, between scouting grounds, proving grounds, and then even into like some of the other stuff like a previous UPL slip that we've seen from him, the champion pool is not a champion pool, it's a champion ocean, and calling it that probably just is not sufficient to claim the number of champions that Sudsy can play out of the mid lane compared to everybody else. So you talk about what champions are now viable in the mid lane when you've got AP junglers coming out. That pool increases for Sudsy. He's just got more champions to pull from, which is a dangerous weapon to use in the drafting phase, especially on red side, which we've seen have a bunch of success over at MSI, which is happening concurrently. Striking Vipers, their mid laner is no slouch either. He's got some mid lane AD champions. You think both of them share that Aurelia, that Viego, both keeping fingers crossed that we could see some of that tonight with these AP jungle additions. Could make for a very spicy mid lane matchup.
Man, I want to see some Viego. You've said it here. He's so much fun to be able to watch. I'm sure not to play against, because you're playing against a whole entire squad of champions at that point. But it's just so much fun, and it's honestly a wacky character. Have to keep our eyes out on that. And a couple of, different niche picks out there. Aurelia is one that actually comes into mind if we're thinking about these unique picks. I want to see if that might be something contested, because we do see that across the board here.
We do. One of the other big things, I feel like there's a number of people on Revival that will play like the Aurelia between Sudsy and then Step Top. And Step Top's got his own pool that's just a completely ridiculous mess. Where you think Urgot's got to be in there, Wukong's got to be in there. I know he's a Singe player from back in the day when he was in there. I've seen Garen recently invited to that pool. You have Yorick that's been added to that pool. Every top laner that you're like, there's no way that champion is viable top lane, seems to be the meta pick here for the side of Step Top. So maybe some craziness to come out of that role as well. The flexibility's got to be there, but we're going to get a chance to see what they go to in terms of banning. I don't want to see another Morgana, Rumble, and Diana ban out just to make sure all of them are off the board, and then we're back to Udi or Olaf or something. That would
Let's not have it where at MSI it went to Hecarim Udyr, right? They played the patch on 11.9. They're like, let's go back to 11.6, quick.
Be upsetting. I do want to make mention. We saw the Lulu ban. Obviously, it's a little bit flexible. I don't expect it to go to ZMT, but we did see Lulu Kog'Maw earlier today, and I'm certain that Striking Viper's bot lane would be capable of managing that one. Misery is a very good player, and that Kog'Maw probably something that's very well suited, as they like to play that one. And Gwen now taken away from this opposing team. You have to think that's flexible between both Sudsy and Step Top, as both of them are more than proficient on a number of very skill-intensive champions. Haven't gotten much of a chance to cover Gwen in terms of my casting. I know you talked about how you got the chance to cover that before Viego in previous weeks, so maybe you have better experience, but unfortunately not going to get that one here tonight.
Yeah, I've only seen it in the jungle actually here as of late too, even though it actually has pretty good laning. So it's actually even more powerful because it fletzes between 3 roles. But right now, Revival, they hate rats, is what I'm finding here. As they banned away Lulu, they've banned away Tristana. They are not enjoying them whatsoever.
Yeah, I was saying there's no Twitch ban yet, so they don't really hate rats yet.
Yordles in general are. Listen, if there's anything that TFT has taught me in the new set is every time I see a Yordle, they're rats. Okay.
the Yordles themselves are the people playing these Yordles. I don't know.
But hey, going back through it, we have a Renekton taken off the table, so Step Top not going to get his hands on that. Now, Revival, ban a 3rd Yordle so you can just take rats off the table, and we can have this storyline that Revival hates Yordles.
It's better every time. Now, also, Renekton getting taken off the board, I think, is really intriguing, only because we talked about AP junglers and their addition into the pools and such. Sudsy is actually, I think, more the Renekton player than Step Top. I'm not saying that Step Top can't play it, but that is a flex pick that can be used, especially when you add it into an Elise combination, which Pulp could probably snag that one up and make that into a dangerous flex pick between top and mid lane, making it super difficult to pick anything really easy to scale with. Otherwise, you just get dove over in a given. So Striking Vipers, they don't want to take their chances on that. Now they have their chance of taking away any meta. I was going to say Rumble still available for Morgana, Diana still available. There's a number of different AP champions that can still be used here. You have to think Morgana's got to be the first pick, though.
Yeah, I'm honestly kind of feeling like that just has to be the answer here, right? It's flexible. It's really good in the jungle currently, right? Rumble's off the table. I feel like if you don't take it, Striking Vipers might just in their next round scoop it up.
I agree. And especially when you can pair it and you can start flexing it. This would be interesting because you have triple flex between top jungle and mid lane. It has been Pulp for the most part playing this champion, but I don't know that I agree with that fully because, again, you can still grab Morgana, it's actually a pretty big deficit against the Nocturne because when the fear doesn't go off, it's not as easy to win those one-on-ones, especially against melee characters in the later stages of the game. So this is a bit of a risk being taken by Revival, thinking that the flexibility of this champion will be able to throw off Striking Vipers to some extent, but they're trading good draft capital for it because, like, right there, Morgana, and then anything you want into Nocturne is available on the board if you don't want to play Morgana into it, or you can grab something super high priority for yourselves because that's what's been traded by this just pure kind of selection pick specifically for someone on Revival who wants the champion.
And I'm curious now, Striking Vipers, you have another champion for yourself here. What else do you want to grab, right? You have the flexibility, you have the power of the Morgana. You know, you can grab a priority AD carry for yourself. You could grab Viego. That is power. We got a Viego tonight, Rebel.
I can't even imagine how filthy that this combination is because right now you got one of the fastest clear speeds in the entire game in the Morgana and a black shield to throw on one of the probably the harder to play but definitely one of the stronger champions that exists right now. Fitting it into any composition isn't perfect and it obviously has some volatility, but the damage that this champion can put out in fights, especially with a black shield on so there's no CC, that is a combination that Striking Vipers has now impressed me with already. We didn't have to give predictions thankfully because predicting this series is really difficult to do, but I'm leaning towards Striking Vipers just because I love the champions they've selected already.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. Hey, look, it's exciting, but you know someone else that's also exciting, Revival. They lock in Kai'Sa. I'm expecting a support that's going to go in with this Kai'Sa now, man. They're got the build already of a composition that knows one direction, and it's forward. I am really looking forward to that, especially as we've seen Scoop play this Kai'Sa to great success. And hey, we got Rel down there in the bot lane together, so we've seen that plenty of times. We've casted a lot of games of Kai'Sa Rel, and we know just how devastating it can be when pulled off correctly.
It's phenomenal. It team fights very well, and it does continue to kind of bode into this more dive-oriented composition into this team. I will say one thing, which is that Galio feels it could have been really good here for not only Sudsy, who plays a fair amount of it, but also its flexibility between mid and support, and its combination with the Nocturne, which could have given you really solid dive potential, but they're not opting for that. Instead, now Striking Vipers gets to respond to your dive composition, and more importantly, the Rel, who's a little bit more shallow than something like a Galio, which you'd pair with Nocturne, and throws his Xayah against it, which has been super good into the dive composition. Very standard marksman, a lot of safety behind it. You throw a black shield into your Xayah, all of a sudden it's really difficult to get on top of her with CC whatsoever. Makes her just like freely auto throw some of the feathers in that you know can be devastating within the 5-on-5.
And I do love this so far from both sides here. They've actually left quite an air of mystery for some of their lanes here. And then they've locked in powerful picks that they know they have great success on. They've got a bot lane here for Revival that they have a lot of success on, and the Nocturne pick as well. That does have some flexibility like you were talking about, but mostly we've seen on Pulp. But Vipers, they've got the power picks. They got the Morgana, they got the Viego, and they said, hey, we see that you guys want to go deep. We're going to take a champion that is going to be able to protect herself with that Featherstorm, right? I really like the answers coming out here inside of game one of this best of three. And you can even see the bans coming off the table here. Getting some top lane love up here. We got the Camille, the Gragas getting taken off the table right off the bat.
Yeah, making sure to get some disengage off the table here from the side of Striking Vipers, because it's already going to be difficult to get onto this Xayah, Morgana, and even Viego, who's got a bunch of kite back. And Striking Vipers taking away top laners that could be good into what they're going. You know, Camille has got to be in that pool set. More interestingly, probably isn't as much of a flex, but could be put into mid or into top, depending on what you want, even to support, because we saw Rel, we don't expect it there. But I feel like those aren't perfect targets, specifically for what Step Top wants to do, if that's not going to be Nocturne in the top lane. And you still have two of these roles that are needed to be filled. Information's going to be given away pretty quickly as well, because we don't know what support is being picked by Striking Vipers. And if they pick a solo lane here, we're at least going to be able to get a counter pick, at least one guaranteed counter pick for one of those roles. So Striking Vipers, they have to give away a little bit of information here, unfortunately.
Yeah, honestly, I'm right there with you. I feel like Striking Vipers need some engage of their own, right? Like they need to lock in a tank in the top side or something in the bot side. And you talked about it perfectly. Gragas and the Alistar didn't taken off, but Xayah could make for a romantic duo down here on the bot side for Striking Vipers.
I've actually become more and more. I've grown fonder and fonder of this combination. Back at like a couple patches ago at the beginning of the season, I was like, Xayah Rakan as a combination just isn't at all what it used to be. But very recently, Rakan has been able to step back in with a number of different ways that you can play out laning phases, play defensively, that kind of thing. Into Rel, he doesn't have to play super aggressive. You can just play defensive and play as you wish to do. And it's been pretty nice because now you do have a little bit of engage. You do want some frontline. We do have Diana that's thrown into this. This could be flexed for Sudsy, which is one thing I think that has to be kept in mind here between the mid and the jungle. So I think what happens is they pick whatever blind top laner they want right now, and they leave that Diana Nocturne potential flex between mid and jungle up to make sure that there's still some toes to be kept on from the side of Striking Vipers.
Rebel, I love this patch. We just got debated so hard. Now we got this Diana Nocturne idea here, and we're like, they can both go jungle or mid. Who knows? The Nor, of course, is going to be on the top side, so they have to reveal that. I think this is going to be interesting. I'm curious on what Diesel has picked, like lined up to pick. I still think they need some beef. I think they need somebody who's going to be a bit chonky in the top side, like a Scion or something like that. But okay, well, call the Orange Hornets an all-you-can-eat buffet with this kind of beef that they're bringing up to the table, man.
I agree. It's not bad in Tanar, only because you don't necessarily get slammed to the wall, W'd, whatever, you can stop CC. Relatively tanky, it's still ranged into melee, there's still percentage health from Gnar, but at least it feels like something that Ornn is capable of living through, and it does still fit into this. If you want to do a kite backwards composition, you can do that with the Ornn Horn being able to push people off. Your E is able to like work backwards in fights. This doesn't feel like a super hard commitment pick, but I do love what you were saying, where like you need some frontline and you'd like some more engage. Ornn fits into pretty much every profile they would like. The one problem, you don't have the most damage in the world right now if Viego isn't going or Xayah isn't going, but at minimum, you do have pretty good setups pretty much across the board as long as you're able to get these item marks here for Striking Vipers. This feels like a team that you could put together and keep even most of the game, and at any point, you're capable of taking team fight wins, you're able to win skirmishes, you're able to win even in like 2v2s, one-on-one situations because of the ability of their champions. We do finally see Revival did opt for the Nocturne mid lane with that flex, and it's going to be the Diana jungle into the likes of that Morgana. I am curious to see what Pulp's capable to do on this champion and what the plan for Sudsy is here, because he's pretty good Nocturne player, pretty good just player in general, and has a lot of access to the map now with this champion.
Yeah, both of these team comps, I'm going to be honest, I feel like we can describe them with one word, and it's explosive, right? Both of these teams here, they have moments to explode. You talked about it beautifully with Striking Vipers. This is a team that can go even for a majority in the match. One team fight can make them explode into the lead. Viego pop off. Xayah burst somebody down. Morgana able to get a binding that just follows up by a slew of CC and damage. There's so many things that can make a team fight happen for Striking Vipers that I feel like, you know, just like you said, any moment can be their moment. Where Revival, man, the explosive happens at level 6 for these guys, right? Like, you got Sudsy on Nocturne in the mid lane. This thing is a reverse Twisted Fate. Instead of the fact that it's giving vision, it's taking vision. And it is something that is phenomenal in certain matchups. And I honestly really do like this Nocturne pick in the melee matchups. I am curious to see how it's going to play into a Viego. And I do want to see exactly what the impact of this pick could have here, because you got to think he's very confident with that Nocturne into Viego matchup to say, all right, let me take this on such a high profile mid laner like Nocturne, who does want to have so much proactivity in the game.
I like it because our desk talked about how Revival does have sometimes a bit of a one-note type composition where usually they're playing through Sudsy. This is a composition where it's not necessarily the damage that's being brought by Sudsy, but more so it feels like he's the one kind of running the map for the most part, because he gets to move a lot faster than the Viego does. Should have lane control for the most part over top of Viego, definitely the wave clear over top of Viego to begin the game, and that means that you're attacking these lanes where, again, if Striking Viper stays even, they're in a really great place to take 5-on-5s pretty consistently and anything else they'd like. But if they fall behind early in the game, it's really difficult for them to fight into a pit, especially when you're talking about AoE from like Gnar ultimate, Diana, everybody else is going to be coming through, Rel also to throw that Magnet Storm in as well. So there's a lot of this big AoE team fighting prowess around neutral objectives that gives not only the ability to just like completely keep Striking Vipers if they're behind on the map pressure out of all these pit areas, but also, you know, if they do fall behind, at minimum they do have that Hail Mary type 5-on-5 fight that they could go for into a pit it by shutting off the lights and such. But most of the map to begin with is actually going to be dictated very heavily by Sudsy in this mid lane, which is exactly what Revival loves, even if he's not particularly the greatest carry in this game.
Yeah, I feel like the utility that you get, you do have carries over onto the side here. I also want to see Step Top on this Gnar and how it's going to actually end up playing out too, because we talked about it. Ornn does pretty fine into Gnar in just about most cases. He fits all molds. He can be your mage, assassin, tank, whatever you want to call him. He does it all. But Gnar is a champion that I feel like we've seen a lot of success on some high-profile top laners right now. And it has been a champion that if you're looking to style out on, it actually does come with quite a good bit of proactivity and whatnot. So Step Top, keeping the eyes, see how they build that rage meter, how they use that Gnar ultimate, because I feel like that's a big point to kind of look at with Step Top here is, Rebel, we are getting into game number 1 here between Revival and Striking Vipers. This is going to be exciting.
I feel as though we're in for either like a game that's filled with multiple like big like just kind of game defining fights where we'll get like big 5-on-5s in the river around objectives, or we're gonna have a game where either like Nocturne is just bodying the map and then there's nothing for Striking Vipers to do. Mento is the other person who can do that. This clear speed on the likes of the Morgana is really high, and you can get in front of the Diana to begin with in terms of tempo to gank for these lanes and do some crazy things to begin with. So Mento, I feel like, does have a good amount of counterplay to work with in the beginning stage of the game to try to get Striking Vipers into late, but I know which one I'm rooting for. I also know which one you're rooting for. So can we just get the 5 on? Can we just reveal the script and say this is going to be 3 or 4 5-on-5s? We're going to have a 46-minute game that goes to second Elder Drake, third Baron, that kind of thing.
Ooh, you're making me salivate over here, Rebel.
I'm doing it while you still have spit to use, because after a 46-minute game, you're going to be completely out of wind.
Dude, I mean, I'm also excited too because I'm looking at the summoner spells over from the side of Revival right now. They're running double Ignite, while over on the other side, they're actually a lot more defensive with the exhaust. No Ignites over on the other side from Striking Vipers. So I'm actually very curious too, because that tells me that Revival, they want to play aggressive, man. They're looking to burn down these HP bars and, set this matchup on fire. So I'm with you, man. Listen, I'll produce as much spit as I need to make for tonight's game. Don't worry.
I'm a little curious about the summoner spell decision for Sudsy in the mid lane, because obviously you can win this as the Nocturne. There's nothing crazy about. ZMT is a really good player, but more importantly, like, you don't match TP for ultimate when it comes to what Nocturne's going to be doing to begin with. But the problem is now, because there's no TP on Sudsy, now there's at least the ability to match when tempo is thrown off for ZMT into a side lane. That's something that Sudsy can't really respond to. So now you can make plays on the map if you're ZMT outside of when Sudsy's going. So this Ignite has to pay dividends for Sudsy in the laning phase. Otherwise, I feel like good TPs from ZMT can just cancel out some of the roams that Sudsy will have at the beginning of the game.
And it goes back to the point too of like Striking Vipers don't need an early lead, right? Like this is a composition we talked about. You and me both are in agreement with. This is a composition that can just stay even and have a pop off moment in a fight, and then control the game from there. So I think, like what you said, it feels like Striking Vipers definitely took the safer option, while Revival are a little bit riskier on the summoner spell choice here for sure. As Plut's taking a risky amount of damage here. Remount, get the stun. Blossoms is ignited, but it's just going to be a trade of HP bars for these supports.
You got to be a bit careful. I liked the initial play from Blossoms just to get the burst damage down into these two, and actually the health bar trade I think is still positive for Striking Vipers. But again, when Plux has Aftershock and some of these other defensive tools that are available to him, it's really difficult to trade health bars when you have that tanky of a Rel in the top or in the bottom lane compared to like the Rakan, which we saw get just obliterated right there. Actually on top side.
You want to talk about something getting obliterated here? It's actually going to be Diesel. He gets turned around quickly. And that's the power of Gnar, able to kite it out. And Pulp's up here on the top side now, and Diesel knows about it.
Actually looking, okay, it was just a complete clear on both sides here from both junglers. And now Diesel's in a really rough position where Pulp is trying to make this dive happen. There's no way out of this situation for Diesel right now. This would be a ZMT teleport to try to cover, but it doesn't look like they're going to burn that either.
Yeah, he's doing a good job dodging a lot of this. The dash comes through. Good knock up to connect. And Step top laner is going to go down, but it is an execution. So it is just a 1-4-0 there as Pulp takes a victory lap on the tower. But down here on the bot side, Mento taking a bit of damage, looking for the invade here onto the Krugs. Plutz will get stuffed by that binding, but nothing else to happen. Wait a second. Dive possibly looking for action on the scoop. Is not going to be able to find him.
Big thing was Blossom thankfully didn't do any damage, so wasn't tanking tower. This is Mento, again, on this Morgana, you have a ridiculous amount of clear speed, so just taking camps as fast as possible from Diana, who found herself on top side before the reset had come through from Pulp to be able to find anything. ZMT getting kind of run down by Sudsy.
Yeah, the Ignite is taking away, like you were talking about earlier. Spell Shield is there. He's going to be able to live on about 15 HP and be able to reset.
Yes. Mento, I think, you want to stay in mid lane. You should have dropped a Tormented Soil there to push this wave back so ZMT doesn't have to TP back to lane, because I'm guessing ZMT is about to do exactly that, and that's precisely what's happening, which means that instead of collecting a bit of farm on your Morgana and getting ZMT to hold that TP, even if it means trading back camps in exchange for it, that, Mento doesn't get to back here for another second, so you got to go back into your bottom side, clear a couple more for it as
living in misery, staying true to the name, is going to find himself getting caught out, trying to see if they'll be able to trade this back. Flashes over the wall, trying to get the damage on the Scoop, but Scoop will drop the dabbing penguin and be able to find that kill.
Yes, I am accustomed to what it's like living in misery, because I live in Missouri. That's where I live. But it's an unfortunate right there. The Flash, sorry, yeah. The Flash was really unfortunate right there from living in misery, as you were just caught out a little too far up. I like if you hit that like feather pull right there and get the root. There's actually decent potential that Scoop has to burn heal and maybe even dies from the amount of burst that you pull out. So I can at least respect the attempt. You know you're in a bad situation though. You're probably not getting out and still living in misery. You could have held it. But like I'm going to give him props for attempting to try to get out of that situation with something positive, but also way too far up in that lane and gets punished for it.
Lived in misery, died with hope, man. That's how it works sometimes. But now going over across the map, I do want to take note of the fact that Morgana did just get their first back here. Mento, this does happen with jungles with very healthy clears. As Pulp is over here in the area, Blossoms is going to get caught. Nope, they're just going to recognize that they are both there, and look how fast that scuttle was taken, Rebel.
Extremely, yeah. The Q removes the shield, and then the W does percentage health damage. I really like that, like, normally, like, as a jungler, you're almost always taught to smite as late as possible to make sure that there's no extra damage that comes out from the camp. But with Morgana, that is the exact opposite. You smite as fast as possible to get the health bar down so your Tormented Soil does the bonus damage. Sudsy's here on bot side, though. Plays coming in. Yeah.
Denies the vision, goes in with the paranoia, but the feathers are getting them. They're being rooted. Plutz taking a lot of damage over onto the bad side, while Diana's able to take out the 80 carry on the back end now. ZMT trying to see if he'll be able to catch anybody else now. He's going to be jumping around inside this fight. It's going to be a double kill that comes out. ZMT is looking to pop off as Orange joins the fray. That's a triple kill. The ZMT, and that's the pop off you were looking for.
ZMT has been such a big contributor to Striking Vikings' success over the course of this entire season, and you see it firsthand right there why they put his hands into the likes of this. Viego is able to get down the river fast enough. A lot of stalling time bought by Blossoms and by Mento and their defensive abilities here to be able to confirm this. You're seeing it's such a quick collapse in vision from Sudsy. Here comes ZMT, but watch this stall. The black shield keeps the stun from coming through. Plux does end up going down relatively quickly, but this buys so much time for Pulp to do damage on this Diana and ZMT to be able to pull the rel, which just continues this fight a little further. Yes, you end up trading 2 for 3, and 2 of your members did go down, but this Viego getting ahead is a massive damage healer and team fighter that you're going to be able to use to try to get out of this early game effectively. Not to mention pulling that dragon stalls out this game even better for a team that loves the 5-on-5 eventually. Big props to Striking Viper's ability to turn that fight and find the neutral objective.
Found the neutral objective, but now another neutral objective has been begun over here at the top side, man. Revival able to go ahead and grab this Herald up here, but you think this is absolutely just textbook on their part. They're able to get that momentum to get over there towards the top side. They get the spot out to Diana, but wait a second. Scoop is just getting dove underneath the tower, living in misery. You got to be careful about this here. Is going to be able to get out, but is going to go down. Has to take a couple tower shots there. Blossom, you need to get out of dodge, as they are going to be able to escape. That's a 1-for-1 in that tower dive on the bot side.
It is. They're probably going to die a little bit of farm because the wave is shoving in a little bit. But that's, again, this bottom lane here, Living in Misery and Blossoms, have been hit a couple of different times on this map. Maybe it is that Revival's reading that this is potentially the lane to gank. It is two squishy champions to try to attack with a champion like Rel that has a bunch of CC to work with. And that was a dive that just kind of went awry. It was a little bit of a shame. It was a trade 1-for-1, thankfully, and there's still a 10 CS advantage for Living in Misery. But still, this is Scooped, who is an exceptionally good Kai'Sa player. You can look back historically at what he's been able to do on this champion, and he's one of the better Kai'Sa players that we saw in a bunch of the leagues, a bunch of amateur as well. So Scooped, very dangerous threat to be giving gold this early to, as Diesel just takes so much harassment from Step top laner right here.
Dude, Gnar is just broken, man. You can see the boomerangs coming through, but the Ornhorn has been called in. Collected Step top laner will be able to take out Diesel and the solo kill on the top side.
It's such a shame because I think at some point there, Diesel wasn't able to get off a Brittle proc. That might have been the execute necessary with the tower shot to kill off the Gnar, but instead it's just more pressure that the Gnar's been able to put on, and the solo laning from Step top lane going as well. And then on the cross side of the map, Pulp is here with the very healthy bot lane to try to push down some additional plates here on this bottom tower. Do watch. There's ZMT. They're coming in for a fight right now.
Yeah, the Kraken has been popped. They grab Scooped. He's going to have to charm. He's going to be able to get Pope onto the side there, but forces the flash from Diana. So it's just going to be a Herald charge as their reward for Revival down here in the bot side.
Yeah, it's going to be a couple of plates. Sudsy's also pulling a couple of plates off, so it's a lot of gold given away for a fight that did not end up getting anything except for the flash from Scoop. They're going to try to make a play onto Sudsy as well if Mento can hit this binding, but the spell shield will be able to cancel it out anyway. So for the most part, again, it's difficult very heavily for ZMT to find these roam timings because the wave clear isn't there. I know that they continue to want to try to find these, but Blossoms with no ultimate.
They pull the trigger in the bot side. Ignite ticking away onto the Xayah. Killer Instinct being used as well. Scoop just needs one more auto, but Blossoms will be able to body block the rest of the possible damage to come out, and they will be able to escape with their lives.
You got to be super careful right there if you're on the side of Striking Vipers. Again, when you don't have your ultimate on Rakan, it's difficult to stop Rel's engagement with anything for the most part. And you saw right there firsthand how easy it was for Plux to just force these two immediately to burn a bunch of summoners. Thankfully, Living in Misery actually made a really nice play by flashing and then immediately letting the Rakan jump to them. What is this? TPZM?
Is Scoop just by himself here? What is Scoop going to be able to do? He's looking to just grab the tower, but ZM2's on a rampage now, man.
That's the cross-map play. That's the use of the teleport right there. That's matched by Nocturne. Again, the wave was in a terrible position, so Scoop is going to be able to shove it back in, but this time Mento covers, and that means ZMT just gets a free cross-map play to match what these Nocturne ultimates are supposed to be doing. Somehow ZMT is finding the aggression in these laning phases against the side of Sudsy.
Look at this! It doesn't shield you from the damage, Sudsy!
This is incredible, man. So much coming out of ZMT. Fantastic roam, the hold from Mento, and immediately now more pressure put on the tower. Rally is behind right now, so it would have to be probably Pulp and Plux that are going to try to attempt to make this play, but they're going to call that off because it seems like instead Step top laner's calling for some resources on top side to dive Diesel again.
Yeah, Diesel has not been in a great spot. You can actually see the CS differential is almost double in favor of Step top laner here. Here we go. Gnar out. Doesn't get him against the wall. Is going to go mini, and it's going to be Plutz re-engaging this underneath the tower. Is going to be able to go unstoppable, but isn't unkillable. While this happens, they find the kill onto Pulp inside the mid lane, and that's just going to be a 1-for-1, and Drake is up. They are going to just grab themselves their second Drake of the game here for Striking Vipers.
I'm not sure what happened in the mid lane there. I love the call top lane from Step top laner, where Rel comes up, you're able to get the CC necessary, you put some additional damage in his minion, it's that simple. Diesel continues to get punished, probably pull top tower. What happened mid lane with ZMT right there? Because it seems like Pulp, my apologies, tried to both clear the wave and also put some damage down, but the cover was still there from Mento and from the rest of this team, and Rel wasn't around to make that fight happen. If you do have all these resources, Sudsy can come in, and all of a sudden you have a 4v3, but because Rel got pulled the top side, you don't have the resources to make that play happen. I don't know if he just got caught by CC or Mento maybe caught him with a binding or something, but that costs more mid lane gold here for Striking Vipers, as well as also getting another dragon into the back pocket of this 5-on-5 squad. Sudsy at least has multiple members here. They might be trying to force down mid tower as fast as possible.
Yeah, I mean, open up the Nocturne, get some more resources, makes a lot of sense. Mento trying to clear the red buff, is fast at clearing, but does have a Diana sitting in the wings. ZMT will be able to basically telling to back on up, and Minto will be able to secure that. And right now, you can even see the gold right now in terms of between these two teams, because there is a gold lead in favor of Revival despite all of this. Look at the gold lead between Gnar and Orin. Oh my god.
Yeah. It's been this massive canyon in top lane, unfortunately. Step top laner is incredible. The old top laner for this Revival roster stepping back in. He's been incredible in the past, and you're seeing exactly that come back through on this Gnar pick yet again. The only other big difference is like bot lane, where you have this Kai'Sa who's doing really good work. It's difficult for Living in Misery and Blossoms as slowly the tankiness, the engage is coming from Flux, and these kind of bot side plays haven't gone perfectly from the side of Striking Vipers. That's where all this gold advantage is. So despite having this massive Diego to work with, despite Mento being able to play this kind of very hard farming jungler who's able to get it quite a bit, they've given up a number of tower plates. They've given up these massive CS advantages that just are unmatched gold rates right now for Striking Vipers. Again, when they're finding the fights, they're still looking good, especially when ZMT is involved, but the gold advantage is still very tangible, especially when Gnar is involved in the fight.
Oh gosh, Sudsy getting almost caught out there is going to be able to escape. And you can see here, you know, Striking Vipers are looking to scrap. It's crazy. I think some of these fights have been explosive in their favor, but definitely the gold lead has been something to struggle around as they got a Herald dragged all the way out here. And we're seeing these two teams kind of skirmish with each other. Step is going to be able to get a good amount of damage. This is actually just going to be a solo kill. This Xayah is not long for the world. That is going to be a killing spree for Step Top.
Difficulty right there. Number of things gone wrong now for Striking Vipers. For Revival, they pull a solo kill on this Xayah. Not the most valuable team fighter, but the bigger thing is that if you leave that Gnar unattended, that's just going to be a bottom tower gone and even more gold into his pocket. So instead, they got to put Ornn down there, make sure the Gnar can't go anywhere. You have to put a couple members in mid lane where the push has already become because you have the numbers advantage, and that just frees up Rift Herald here for Pull to be able to pull that off the board, which means more towers.
Look at this! He's about to go another person! Bring another! Who wants to come up next?
I just keep setting them one by one, man. Like, Step top laner is just gonna ruin every single person. Currently up 70 CS. He now has, I think, 3 just solo kills out in his own name. Like, the problem right now is Striking Vipers from jungle down are doing okay enough in this game to respond, but top lane is just so difficult to deal with that if any silent goes to a side lane, you're just losing to this Gnar immediately. That's horrifying, as that's the majority of the lead held by Revival right now. It's just been this massive split push Gnar and all these tower plates and towers that have been removed from the map because of that one champion.
This is why I wanted to put a spotlight on this champion, though, man. We see this time and time again currently inside of this meta, inside the top side. Gnar is such a safe and strong pick that is instrumental in these top lane players, and we see more and more carriers take this carry play style now. That Stridebreaker plus the Randuins now onto Step top laner is making them hard for anybody to really do anything to, and he is just killing them in the blink of an eye. The second the camera pans back over, the HP bars are already depleted, so have to keep our eye out on Step Top, especially because this is also, Step Top has not participated in a single fight for Revival here.
Is not.
Oh gosh, it's just, he's stuck up against the wall. Sudsy finds the kill after Step Top does all the work. Now it's Minto who has to get out of there, or he's going to fizzle out of control as Sudsy's looking to try and get the damage onto him. Quickening will be popped here. It is going to be some damage getting traded back and forth. Minto's getting dove here. Step Top, you're getting a little bit too crazy. Step Top, what are you doing up there? He's going to go down while this is all happening. We're going to see Scoop pick up a solo kill underneath the towers in the mid lane here. And just like this, Revival are just completely taking over the game.
Yeah, it's just been flexing constantly over and over again. So much resources to put into trying to bring down Gnar that you don't have anything for anyone else. And right there, you saw the exact same thing. Yes, you'd get Gnar traded, but that cost the life of the Xayah, cost the life of ZMT during the course of that engagement, and pulled a bunch of people to topside where Rift Herald was still available for pull. They're getting pulled all over the place by the rest of this team. I do like that finally Sudsy was able to pair with one of his solo laners, and the Dragon is going to start coming into Revival. But the really horrible thing about this game for Striking Vipers is that they have pretty much one way to win, which is team fighting, and they just haven't been able to find or connect those pieces around these dragons as well as they've wanted to past that first couple of minutes. So even if this Morgana and this Viego are doing good things, the entire map's getting run by everybody except for them. They don't have the ability to force this 5-on-5 the way they want to because they're down 7,000 gold, 8,000 gold at this point.
Honestly, you heard me like groan in pain because I watched the HP bar of Mento just drop there as they face checked a bush there. It is actually very, very terrifying. And I do want to bring up the fact that, this is also off the bat that, we're looking at the kills 11-7. The gold lead is almost at a 10K difference. I want to point out a very important difference here, man. This is a difference of Revivals actually getting things at the end of these fights, right? We've seen a Drake get grabbed off of the end of 2 of these, but no towers have been claimed by Striking Vipers off of any of these fights that they've been able to find advantages, and all of these towers are actually pretty healthy. So that's actually a very big thing we have to look at, especially as we're going through this series.
Yeah, you think about top lane, you have that ranged advantage with a good amount of percentage health damage to fight against the Ornn. I love that trade-off right there. Well done by Scoop to snag that one away. But then you also have mid lane where you have the same thing with like Qs and the AoE autos from Nocturne out clear Viego. And then bottom lane, what ended up happening was they were able to fight to break out this bot lane a couple of times by burning resources, by burning flashes, anything that you could in bottom lane to make it easier for Rel and Kai'Sa to threaten all ins. And because of that, those two, even with a range advantage, even with wave clear advantage, can't do anything, end up getting shoved in over and over again. And even when Striking Vipers started to collect themselves into these lanes, they suddenly got punished by losing a wave and a half. Now Mento is even in some really bad trouble. Thankfully, never mind.
That's a solo kill. There's no thankfully, there's no happily ever after, man. There's just 6 feet under for Mento here, and that's the priority of that gives them the ability to go onto Baron here. This thing's gonna get shredded.
I had suspicions that maybe Mento was going to be able to get out of dodge, walking diagonally away from Xayah, away directly, or my apologies, from Kai'Sa, away for directly, and getting to Blossoms, who was only a handful of steps away, but doesn't end up happening. Blossoms is going to cry! That was way too close for comfort, but we're okay with that. Pope was able to be there. Well done, Pope. Okay.
That was almost catastrophic there. If you're a jungler and you get Baron stolen from you by Rakan, that is a whole new level of just like, yep, nope, I'm done. It's cool.
Like, just play for the next one. That's all you can do. But thankfully, not going to happen here. Instead, Revival, they're able to make that play happen. They're able to force onto the opposing jungler. Mento can't respond. And now this Baron buff, it's going to get them a ton. There's a lot of gold already taken off the map, but this outer ring is gone. If they even grab this inner ring of towers, that's already going to be dangerous because mid, inner, and mid, the inhibitor tower are taken down already. So that means if you just put Sudsy mid lane or put somebody like Kai'Sa mid lane and start attacking into side lanes with like these big globals or like semi-globals like you have with these massive dashes these champions employ, all of a sudden you can't put one member in or like 1 or 2 members in because they get over flooded by the opposition, which is what you're seeing to ZMT happen right now actually.
Yeah, ZMT is in a terrible situation. Is going to be able to dash away, but is still getting all escape routes cut off. Scoop finds the kill on a killing spree. This is just Revival really running shop here.
You can push up as far as you want in mid lane. You can walk through the enemy jungle. Look at all this warding that you've got right now, controlling pretty much everything. There's nowhere for Striking Vipers to feel safe unless you've got 3-4 people there at any given time to try to take a 5.
Oh my god, just grab the Zion underneath the tower, let him live. But it's going to be Step Top that goes on down. They are going to be able to call the Ornn Horn. Only hit onto Pulp, so no fight to break out from it. It is a 4v4, but the strongest member of Striking Vipers is currently down at the moment. It's like Revival are just going to play this so unsteady. But wait a second. Yeah, this is Viego coming in. ZMT wants to re-engage this. He wants the team fight. He is feeling it right now. They're going to be able to have a lot of damage. Plus is over here inside the bat side trying to run interference. It's going to be the Paranoia going into the bat side. Huge ultimate coming out from the rail. And now Revival are just decimating the HP bars as only Diesel stands in their wake. And that is going to be an ace in favor of Revival. And that's going to be the game here, it seems like. They got the minions. They are just going to crush this.
I can appreciate the decision made right there by Striking Vipers, but you've lost so much over the course of the map. Yes, you forced a couple of good fights. Yes, ZMT found a couple of nice kills, but you got to get more than just kills on the map. You have to stay even in some of these neutral objectives and fight for these things, because when you start losing and bleeding out tower gold consistently, when you start bleeding waves away from the people who desperately need that gold, that's when things get out of hand entirely, and that's exactly what happened as Revival able to pull this game into a really clean win after a massive early game. Only 24 minutes. The game felt competitive for the first 10, but man, it got really far out of competition very quickly there.
And I want to talk about something real quick that I observed inside of that game. something very interesting. There was one team fight in that entire game. It felt there was two. There was the one that ended the game, and there was one at the very beginning where we had that Drake that was secured, and we got to see the Viego get a triple kill. It felt like from the side of Revival that they just turned around and said, "Oh, team fighting? Oh, Viego can pop off inside of team fights. We don't team fight anymore." There was more solo kills inside that game than probably inside of any of the UPO games we've actually commentated on inside of the regular season. It was just solo kill after solo kill, and I feel like we have to kind of keep our eyes on that, as it seemed like it was kind of just like a mid game adaptation where they said, all right, maybe team fighting isn't our way, maybe we just scrap.
I mean, from minute one, the plan even from the drafting phase, I think, for Striking Vipers was to try to put all their pieces together and fight around some neutral objectives. The thing was, you have that equal ability from the side of Revival, but they never wanted to play into that game. They never had to play into that game because of the dominance of their solo lanes, because of the resources that were spent in kind of disadvantageous situations from Striking Vipers. You still see the mistakes that are being made. This team did made great strides to split to continue to develop, but obviously there's still chinks in the armor to work out in a bunch of their different gameplay. I do love some of the fights they chose early. I like the fact that they were fighting back. I even think the teleport at the end was really, really inspired. It was a very nice attempt at a play, and you burnt a good amount. The problem was nobody could get the scooped, and this team's down 12,000 gold. So even missing one member, you're probably still down a fair amount of gold, if not even in gold, and things just got messy from there. So coming into game two, I'd like to see Striking Vipers give themselves a bit more agency to control the early game, and definitely find your way into the later stages without bleeding out 10,000 gold in the first 20 minutes.
Yeah, well, we'll see if Striking Viper is going to be able to switch out from that leather armor into some full plate, see what they'll be able to get going for themselves. As ladies and gentlemen, we are not going away anytime soon. This is a series that was just game number one. Striking Viper still could possibly be in this. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to take ourselves a break. When we come back, we're going to be throwing it over to our absolutely charming analyst desk for them to be able to break down the action and get us ready for game number two. So make sure you don't touch that browser.
And welcome back. That's everybody. Ravish, you grabbed by BDB and Miss Kari Wave yet again. So far, all of us seem to be following through on our predictions. Like things seem to be going like quite well. Maybe for some more than others, but I'm just go right out and say I do not want to count any team out of this game just yet, considering how back and forth this was. Though, although the goal lead in a short time span may spell one thing, I think if you really examine the early, mid to late game, I say begrudgingly, we can definitely see that there is so much fight coming out from both sides. So I'll throw to you first here, Cardi, on this. Talk to me a bit about what we saw on Striking Viper Strike from draft.
Yeah, the draft, I thought it was really strong. Beatdown and I were both like kind of praising it in the during the actual selection of it. I love especially taking advantage of that Morgana clear. But as you can see, the Ornn really wasn't enough to withstand, especially the fury of the Gnar. I wasn't expecting it to go that bad. I really wasn't. I think that there was something to be said about the mental crumbling on top lane a little bit. I think that I think he just disappointed himself, and I'm hoping he'll come back stronger. There was two specific points in the game that Beatdown kind of identified it, and I'd like if he could expound on those as well.
So the points where I felt the game really took a turn in favor for Revival is around the first Dragon fight, where we see Diesel TP to a fight that, quite frankly, is already doomed for Revival. It's already won. Diesel didn't actually need to go there and participate and commit the Call of the Forge God and the whole 9 yards. What that allows is that you see it's actually this fight here where what's going to happen is, the fight here is really impactful. You get 3 kills for ZMT, who's playing Viego, so this is actually like quite good in favor of Striking Vipers. But look at top lane. If you could look at the mini-map here, you see Concept on the Gnar is farming wave after wave, gets many turret plates, and this is where things start to fall apart realistically, because so much gold and XP is lost for Diesel. He falls behind in levels, in goals. Gold, he gets to a point where Concept can solo kill him, and it gets really difficult for Diesel to actually stay in the lane and be able to farm. The second play too is around that bottom side of the map. ZMT goes for a similar play. He walks down, leaves lane, and not the best of wave states to try and make a play bot. You get a couple flashes, which is nice, but again, you lose more gold and XP mid. You give up turret plates mid in favor of Sudsy, and you see that gold lead start to grow and grow and grow. And even though I like Striking Viper's composition, I thought it outscaled going into the later stages of the game. When you fall behind that much gold, there isn't really a whole lot of coming back.
2 consistent catalysts, which ultimately, like you were saying, Beatdown, led things a bit more downhill for more the one side than the other. But if we're looking at forward within the game, right, you saw just how many of the team fights were so close. And even looking at the last one, the Striking Vipers were obviously very, very ahead at the point of the game in
I
terms of the
hated
goal
watching
lead.
this.
And then at the side comes the darkness.
Yeah, the thing is, I love this fight too because, I love the idea of taking this fight rather for Striking Vipers, but it ends up being a really good ultimate there from Pulp on the Diana, makes it harder for them to actually get on top of Sudsy because this is a 4v5. You got to understand the most fed member of Revival is taken out, and this is kind of the last stand there for Striking Vipers, but they couldn't get on top of anybody and blow them up quickly enough to be able to actually get the wipe they're looking for. Had they been able to do so, we'd probably still be in that game. They get rid of all the Baron buffs, you'd get a couple of shutdowns, a lot of gold to catch up on, and there was a window back into the game, but unfortunately, they have to look towards game 2.
They most definitely do. Now, if we're looking at right now, Cardi, in your opinion, what must the Vipers do to be able to bite back in the second game?
I think just not letting the game slip away like that, just like it was kind of a slow burn. And instead of being the ones who were leading the actions, they were following. So I think that it's important to know that if the game starts slowly slipping away from you and you notice that a slow gold lead is compounding over, the first 10 minutes, you want to start making calls that put the other team in a bad position. You want to start leading them around. You want to start making them follow your rotations instead of letting them call the shots. That's really the only way to stop that slow burn and that snowball out of control. So if you start to see that, make sure that you're calling the shots. You do some surprise rotations even, like to mid or top midway through the game. So those are my that's my suggestion. Beatdown, I'd like to know yours as well.
For me, it's risk assessment. It's the
Mhm.
biggest thing, and we saw that, and basically that's highlighted in what I was talking about and how game one went a little wrong for Striking Vipers. When you're making a play across the map, the big thing is what are you potentially losing? What are you going to gain? And even when they got something for it, they still ended up losing more than they got for it in game one. So I think just identifying those scenarios where, okay, this is a safe play. We only lose a little bit of golden XP in X lane, and we could potentially pick up some kills and start to snowball a lane. That's perfectly fine. It's just being able to identify those moments, and instead of going for some more like 50-50 plays, play for the 80-20, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I actually think that's completely true. And I think we saw some very serious skill, especially in team fights. I think that we saw, and I think that more than anything, team fight skill is, like, I don't want to say it's like 70% of your success, but it kind of is later in the game. Finding those clutch team fights and positioning correctly, putting the other team in positions that aren't favorable for them. Those are the keys to like some very serious. And so we saw a little bit of that here. And so hope is not all lost for Striking Vipers.
No, it is not. So let's see if you try to bring the hope back, rise your spirits up, and then be able to inject poison into Revival, if possible. This little snake pun for you all. We'll throw it over to our cast yet again, Travesty and Dean Rebel Fox Merrick, in a couple of seconds to get number 2.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome on back to the UPL. We are going into game number 2. Thank you to the desk, as always, for being able to get us prepped and ready coming into what is hopefully going to be a second game inside the series that's going to be, I want a bit more action, Rebel. I want to see these teams fight a little bit more. That last game, honestly, one team fight, and then they were like, we don't fight again. We just scrap. We just scrap. I want some blood in the river, man.
I cursed it because at the beginning of the game, we talked about it where we were like, this is either going to be like 5 or 6 really big 5-on-5 team fights that's going to determine everything, or a bunch of tiny skirmishing that's not going to matter. And what did we say? We said we want the team fighting in the 45-minute game. And of course, the universe just says, no. So this time I'm going to say we're going to get a bunch of skirmishing, and that's what we want, is a bunch of little skirmishing and a really quick, boring game, because maybe then the universe will actually reverse and give us what we wanted in the first place. Either way, though, there's mistakes to be, I think, improved upon by both teams, but more so Striking Vipers have to give themselves some way to get back into this one. I do know we're going into a side swap. So.
Yeah, we are having a side swap. I am curious on what this is going to mean for the bans, right? Because we did see, I believe, on Red side last time, Striking Vipers did ban away Gwen. So I'm kind of curious if they might have some priority on it, because I feel like Viego might get banned here. Just because, it could be like the give and take. I feel like that was the major threat there. And I feel like ZMT, you talked about it, and I think he showed a prime example of it. He was the most stable, and he was also playing so well inside of that last game. So I want to see what they got, because Revival, they showed, hey, this is why they're the number 1 seed team coming out of the mountain.
They really did. And they had at least a couple of good series there towards the end against their AoE component or opponents who did very well against ISU as well. So big props to Revival, especially the addition of their top laner back into the fold has obviously made a massive difference, because you could see exactly how Smurf step top laner can be in the right circumstances against their opposition. So there is that, at least to speak of here. I also think it's really dangerous giving red side to Revival. I know Revival actually picked blue side in game number 1, but to me, this has always been a red side team to me, because you have so many like unique picks both in top lane and in mid lane, and especially now since you now have flexibility when it comes to like what your jungler is playing and things of that sort. It feels like this is even more dangerous to have to consider, although it does make banning a little easier for Striking Vipers. They can now focus a bit more towards some of the less meta stuff and away from that kind of like making sure these AP junglers are off the board.
Yeah, and I know we're going through the bans here, but what I really want to focus in on, because you bring up such an excellent point with Revival having so many tricks up their sleeve, Striking Vipers, what is something that is impactful enough for them to want to first pick is, I feel like, a big question that's on a lot of people's mind here. What does this team composition, what does this team of 5 really have priority on that will really be able to set this draft up to have such a good start for them?
I think if you're going to go the same way that we went last game, where it's like the Diana and the Morgana as the two sides of the coin, then the potential needs to be that you need to win the mid lane coin flip when it comes to wave clear, because then you're able to support your jungler, you're able to attack the map. We saw that last game. It wasn't too much from the Nocturne, but what it did do is punish every time Viega wanted to leave, which was a really big thing in its own right. Otherwise, you need the winning jungle matchup, which I think is possible to get on blue side, because usually what will happen, especially if you give jungler away, don't pick it at B1, it'll usually get picked in first rotation by the red side, and then you'll be able to see what it is that you're going into. And Mento played pretty well last game. I will say the Morgana, it wasn't like superb, it wasn't the best Morgana I had seen, but it was pretty good in terms of what it accomplished during the stages of the game alongside that mid laner. So get something that can help dominate up against Pulp, who didn't have the greatest of performances in the previous game. Not saying he did bad again, but neither jungler really stuck out to me as having this amazing performance. If you get Mento into a good place, maybe that's one success here for Striking Vipers to get themselves into a match win.
I want to talk about something that was a major success for Revival too, because we see it all. Not like when to get, but step top over inside the top side there. Yeah, that's a big person to actually look at. This person showed us a gap that was a canyon deep here. Like, Step Top was phenomenal inside of the top lane here, and I feel like a lot of respect needs to be paid to them.
I agree. Now, one thing to note is if you don't pick a counter pick at the beginning of the end of the first phase, which is like R3, that means you're going to have to blind pick one of your two solo lanes for either Sudsy or for Stack Top Laner, which does give the possibility of Striking Vipers to get a much better matchup on the top side or in the mid lane potentially. So that's up to them specifically. I think after last game, Revival should be more than comfortable picking a counter pick for Step Top Laner, given the champion pool depth that Scoop has. Interesting decision from Striking Vipers, because Morgana is available, but they go immediately into the Thresh, giving that one away.
Yeah, I'm actually a fan of this. I mean, we've seen Thresh be like a support pick with a lot of priority. It works well into just about every team composition you can put it into. Kindred is a champion who has been rising in priority, though, here. We've seen quite a rise in Kindred play inside the jungle, and Pulpit's going to get his hands on that.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of this. I know Pulp plays this quite a bit as well, so the Kindred likely to be something that's very heavy for them. I am, again, Morgana's still available, so it's a little shocking to me. Diana's also available as two possibilities for Mento. What this means is that Revival is going to play a more of attacking style here with this Kindred, which means you also need still priority in your lane, so you're going to be going for some of that stuff. Notice also, Lulu was taken off on blue side last time, I think by Revival. Yeah. They get it on their rotation here, which is a play not only into Thresh, but still flexible among lanes as well if you absolutely want it. This is a dangerous possibility to come in here from the side of Revival for its flexibility and everything that the Lulu can bring.
I also love it too because you already have one marksman, right? Like the Kindred technically is a marksman, and Lulu very superb at buffing them. So you do have a couple options for composition wise with the Lulu. A pick that has risen up in priority, but like you were talking about, Morgana coming in again. Nothing wrong with it from the performance in Mento. Wasn't anything good, wasn't anything bad, was kind of just meh. See what it will bring. Striking Vipers, I'm kind of expecting them to show like an AD or try to get some mystery on these lanes.
I agree. Yeah, I would want them to pick their ADC right here and right now, because that's the best way to go about it. You still have a mild amount of flexibility when it comes to like Morgana into the mid lane, but having that support is already gone. There's almost no chance that that's going to happen. So instead, you pick your ADC here. I love the takeaway from Scoop to make sure he doesn't get his hands on the Kai'Sa yet again, because he was immaculate on a last game, and he plays it very, very well, as you saw not only then, but in a lot of previous games for Revival. So now if they come back to it, they could either try to blind something like mid lane that's priority that they think will get banned away in this phase, or top lane specifically, or they just match this ADC right here for Scooped and they try to get something that's going to be helpful in this laning phase. You can actually win. It's going to be Kog'Maw. We talked about Lulu Kog'Maw. We love this combination of champions. That's fantastic.
Dude, I love Kog'Maw with a burning passion. Kog'Maw was the first champion in League of Legends I bought, by the way. Fun fact. It was a vomiting Caterpie, and I was all about it.
A strange reasoning.
I also have I have a really good Kog'Maw impression too. So,
all right, let's hear it.
Okay, hold on.
It's pretty good.
Yeah,
a really good Kog'Maw impression. I was surprised by how good that was. Well done, my friend. And also, finally, it's time to talk about the picks as they start to come in, because we saw the Aurelia. I also don't get to go into my Kog'Maw spiel, which always has to be with AP Kog'Maw, and how there's a huge conspiracy that Riot did, which was they gave him the untapped attack speed, and then they nerfed the attack speed back to normal. But in that process, they also took down his AP ratios because he wanted to sneak the fact that he was no longer allowed to be a mage, which frustrated me because AP Kog'Maw is one of my favorite things in the entire game. So I'm still
can't play it unless it's on Howling Abyss, Rebel.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Unacceptable.
It's an ARAM only champion, or at least build path now, but we are going to see it hitting the Rift here. There's still an air of mystery, though, with this Lulu, right? We still have the possibility this could go into the mid lane. It doesn't scream Sudsy at all, but it is a champion. We've seen this Revival lineup be very flexible with their champion, so we could see it, but I am expecting this to go down here into the bot lane. We are done with the ban phase here. Sylas, Orianna, Aurelia, Akali. What does Revival end up taking here?
Almost certainly Narm. I think with the Aurelia ban and then the
Nar's
Akali ban, Nar's ban. My apologies, I wasn't paying attention. My apologies. So I think I'd rather see them pick a blind mid laner here, which I think Striking Viper is also caught on to with Orianna and Sylas being banned out. There are other possibilities for Sudsy. This seems like a team that would pick something for Sudsy last instead of step top laner, but given the performance from that in the previous game, that would be better. Instead, they go to Set. It is flexible as a possibility, but I don't think I've seen Sudsy play that one. It wouldn't shock me if he had it in the pool, because I'm pretty sure he has every champion in the pool, but at minimum, for the moment at least, I'm considering that to be more of a top laner than a mid laner.
Yeah, it was banned in the last game, but yeah, I'm with you on this, man. I can see Step Top Laner and Sudsy both playing it. They both want to speak with the chest, square up with Set here, and that could be an absolute possibility to see. As a response here, we got The Rock. We got a wrestling match over here in the top side, man.
Can I get a Yasuo, please, in the mid lane? That's what I want to hear.
I love it.
There's a ton of magic damage on this team. I don't think it would be a bad pick in the slightest. You also have directional shielding to make sure you can get rid of the 2 ADCs that are coming in. I don't think ZMT is a great player. We saw what he could do on the likes of the Viego in the previous game. The skill potential's there for ZMT, and it matches perfectly with Malphite. This also gives them a bunch of really heavy priority in team fights. I wouldn't hate it. No, of course it's not. It's going to be the Rise, which that's painful to see. Fair amounts that comes out from Revival that could come through as counter picks, though. I am curious to see what they're going for here, only because now you have to pick between Set going mid lane, which I think is your better of the two, given what we see between the Rise and the Malphite. So what do you actually have in a Malphite is my question, if you're not willing to take Set into that matchup, which again, I think Set is better into Rise than in a Malphite right now.
I don't like Rise. I don't like it. And then that's going to be the Cassio that just gets locked in. Just lock it in. That's very simple. I am actually much less of a fan of this composition with the addition of Rise into it. One, my heart was broken. I wanted Yasuo or Yone even. I would have taken his brother, either one of the two. But it's definitely like you said, there's so much magic damage actually on this composition from Striking Vipers. Yes, I know Kaisa will be a marksman, will be building a much more AD variant build, of course. But even then, the amount of magic damage is very easy to actually itemize from the side of Revival for the Set, especially. And when you got a Lulu on the other side who's buffing everybody up, it's going to be massive. So I'm very curious, man. On the other side, I think Revival just got all the pieces of stuff that they did end up wanting here.
Yeah, I will say, lane to lane matchup, I'm not in love with the likes of the Set into the Malphite, but outside of that, they feel like they've got a lot of things. They got a ton of damage and really great potential for team fighting. They've got a squishy composition, which could make a lot of problems if Diesel's able to get decently going in this game, because Malphite is a pain to play as against, effectively double marksman with a Cassiopeia thrown in for the challenge in a backline. But I agree with you. I feel like the Rise was not necessary within this. There are a couple of champions. Yasuo was the one that came to mind. The other one was actually Blue Cane, because Blue Cane into a team this squishy would have gone ridiculously hard with the amount of people that he could just assassinate off the back of a Malphite ultimate, and especially with a black shield thrown in, there's no way to stop him either. Now what you've got is you've got Kaisa who can go into backline with Malphite, and then you've got Morgana to throw in some supplemental damage, and Rise working front to back for the most part, but you don't really like front to back into a team with a Kog'Maw and a Lulu and a Cassiopeia to fight into. It feels very strange to try to do that. Not to mention, Pulp's ultimate is a really good way to deny kills off the back of Diesel, off the back of Mento, throwing that combination of ultimate and W, of course, respectively from those champions. So it feels like there's a lot of counterplay for Revival. Their lanes are where they want them to be. The only matchup they have that's not great is Set, but other than that, they're going to be attacking constantly with these high damage champions. It's not going to make it easy for Striking Vipers to get their feet set at any point during this game.
I think the biggest thing that has me actually upset is with Striking Vipers is you do see this composition as you were going into this next phase. You see you got to see the set, right? You got to see a Kindred, you got to see a Lulu, you got to see a Cogmon. This is actually a fairly immobile composition, right? They have 0 displacement. And I feel like that's always like a big thing you kind of zero in when it comes down to Kindred. Another pick that I was honestly really excited for that could have been a possibility is something I've been preaching about ever since this patch. Well, actually for a little bit now, which is Lee Sin in a solo lane. Because honestly, like Lee Sin in a solo lane could actually really beat up a lot of champions. It actually has a lot of power, and I'm sad I haven't been able to see it just yet inside the amateur scene in terms of games I've casted, because I do think it's pretty strong in like the right matchups. But yeah, I'm with you too, man. It's a squishy composition from Revival. Set is not. He might pump iron, but his skin still very fragile. He builds a little bit more AD at the very beginning. He's no longer the chem tank phase rush. I'm gonna run behind people and ult them into the team bot. He actually has a little bit more damage into it, and that's kind of where Riot wants him, it seems. But I'm not completely sold. You know, now that we've said this, Rebel, that you and me have kind of been the downers here in regards to the draft and how we don't have this. But Striking Vipers going to have a perfect game here, 20-0, not going to lose a tower the entire time. That's how it's going to be.
It's like when you're looking at Striking Vipers, the big part about this is making sure Malphite gets involved with the remainder of the team, right? Because like you have no engage, you have some pick potential, but like you should be able to block damage for the most part. You have a ton of damage at the same range, especially if Pulp's able to get going, find those 4 stacks, get the range advantage early on the Kindred. All of a sudden, like trying to challenge with Kai'Sa from mid distance is just not going to happen. Thresh isn't going to have a ton of value when it comes to that. It's all about getting Malphite out of top lane and into team fighting situations away from the laning phase, which to me feels a lot different from their game plan in the first game, where it felt like Ornn was there to play for team fights, but also to sandbag the top lane. You don't really have, you now do that relatively easily against the set. So it's more so about how do we get Malphite away from set and put him in places where all of a sudden he can be this engage for the remainder of our team. There's no real way to stop the ultimate because Black Shield exists. And if a flash is up, it's really hard to have a counterplay. The only real counterplay you've got on the side of Revival, if that Malphite comes flying in, is the Kindred ultimate. So I will say, like I said, with a squishy composition, a good amount of mobility, but not a ton of engage to work with from the side of Revival, there is quite a bit of possibility from Striking Vipers, if they get Malphite involved, to do some legitimate work in this game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do think Malphite could be an interesting thing to look at too, because it is the storyline of the Canyon that we got to see in the last game. This is a champion here where you could probably redeem yourself, right? This is the champion that you can throw what you got into the ring, basically, right? Like if the last game Diesel was really a non-participant, this is his chance to get in there, be able to sock some people in the face and see what he'll be able to do and see if you'll really be able to smell what he's cooking. But we are going into game number 2 here, ladies and gentlemen. Who do you got? You've heard us ramble on and on about what we're thinking, what we're feeling, but we want to hear from you inside the Twitch chat, so let your thoughts be known, as this is going to be I feel like it's going to be a fun game. It's going to not be like the last one here. I'm telling you.
I'm not going to hope for that, because if I hope for that, then we're going to get the opposite exactly.
That's true.
Yeah,
bad
so
game.
I don't hope for that. Yes, I will say
15-minute game.
15 minutes, not fun for anyone to watch. So that's what we're hoping for here. Also, I will say, I think his ease of execution has been given to him very in spades in this one. I'm going to make mention of it just because every time I get a chance, I'm going to make mention of it. That are the hosts of the desk, Ravish, and I played off in a game against one another in the top lane, and he played Malphite, and it required 0.1% of my power on Riven to beat him, which is 10 times more than I thought I would need. So there is that at least to consider. That just building armor, being a tank, and throwing your ultimate into fights is pretty much all that's necessary for this champion. It also keeps Scoops on his toes, because Scoop isn't the most mobile. If Flux isn't readily available to ultimate, there could be some problems. Quite a bit of damage to come out of Lulu. I want to see them get super aggressive to start this, because these two champions have some of the most obscene damage before level 3 of any champions in the game. Yeah.
Also, I love the fact that we are seeing Scooped on the superior Cogmaw skin. None of that, what is it called?
Pugmaw.
Arcanist?
The
Pugmaw. Yeah,
I
everybody
love-
else
I love
goes to Arcanist.
But listen. You go
It's
Arcanist
cute.
when you play AP Kog'Maw. That's the rule because he's a mage. You
Ooh.
can't not play AP Kog'Maw with Arcanist. But if you are playing normal AD Kog'Maw, which is what Scooped is playing here, you obviously go Pugmaw. That's not even a decision to me. There's no consideration there whatsoever.
I feel like people just play the AP version on that skin because his ultimate is actually that much harder to see.
It's true. It's true. That is correct.
It's like you don't want to ever play Omega Squad Viker because the W all of a sudden has this big warning sign where he's going to drop the meteor at.
Good times. All right.
But
oh, okay. You're good.
ooh, that was actually a very big trade coming out here. Diesel making work with those cheese wheels here. The step top laner is going to make work with a Facemaker Haymaker. Step top laner coming in with some moves here. Diesel and step top laner. No flash
There's no
in.
way.
Step is asserting dominance already. Chest has been puffed out.
That he has. And being this low on health, you do get some regeneration back. It's been nerfed, but Set still does okay when it comes to health regeneration at low value. So we'll eventually get that health bar back because Diesel, he went shield, which is one thing. The other thing is the health pot's already been burned. So the sustain isn't necessarily there right now. I will say, not terrible position to be in if you're Malphite, only because now you have to be really careful if you're step top laner. No flash on a melee champion against somebody with so much soft CC is difficult to deal with. Pulp finds this, like, he skipped 2 camps to come into bot jungle to make sure to snag that scuttle crab away. Did lose the RNG battle, but now gets a chance to fight Bento.
That spell shield's not going to be able to save you from the damage that this wolf's about to lay into you. Sudsy flashes forward, and so does Pulp, and they will find a kill. First blood to Sudsy.
It is not often that you see usually you don't even see one camp.
What the heck just happened? Top one.
The health bars are just too low. I think what it was, he was just going underneath the tower. He's like, maybe I can fight the Malphite, and then he's just like, I'm not going to worry about it. We're not going to play that game, so instead it's not going to come through. But again, big props to Pulp for this creative pathing, because again, you rarely see even one camp skipped anymore, let alone 2, especially after the Hecarim Udyr meta. But here we are, 2 full camp skipped to make sure you're caught up to Morgana. You were able to grab bottom scuttle. Then you find a play because Mento was like, okay, apparently Kindred was around here somewhere, didn't read that the possibility was there for the assassination, no Q to land. Now gets top scuttle and first mark, I think now second mark actually, because almost certainly Morgana was marked. That's typically what junglers do. Oh, I was worried that there was going to be
I was about to highlight that, though. It's just like, that was really good pathing, though, to get the ambush. And the thing was, I feel like Mento saw the scuttle going into the middle, so they had to know it was just taken. So right now, gonna have to keep our eyes on that, as Pulp is playing really well inside this game. We were talking about it before this game started, man. We wanted to see more out of this jungle, and Pulp is looking to show us.
He is.
Oh, good death sentence. Lands on the
do
loop.
anything, actually.
Living in Misery is staying true to the name in this lane, man. Scooped is absolutely just having a time. 10 CS up already, and HP bar is not looking good for Living in Misery.
Not at all. Plus, I mean, you think about like what Kog'Maw does, and it's like, okay, he has percentage health damage. He has a range advantage with W. Pulp is going to be able to dodge out on that Q, thankfully. And then Hail of Blades, combined with the fact that Lulu's got, like, I think one of, if not the highest damage on 2 abilities in the entire game with a combination of EQ at level 2, means that if Living in Misery steps up, takes 3 auto attacks and an EQ from Lulu, there's a very real chance that's just an execute. And so Living in Misery is, like you said, living up to the namesake yet again. As Pulp continues to put aggression into this Morgana, no lanes can come and help this Morgana out in the jungle whatsoever. So it's just been Pulp living inside of this blue jungle the entire game. So
take him away from the tower, Diesel. We're gonna take you for a ride. Step top lane. They're not gonna be able to find a kill though. It's gonna keep punching him though. He is looking to sock him and bop him, and will be able to do such. Step top laner finds the kill on the top side, but it is a trade.
It's a trade. This early, I don't think you get the exact necessity. Here's Pulp though.
Pulp got a lot of damage laid into him. Blossoms is going to be able to find that kill for him. TP coming through. They also have the Realm Warp that is going to be coming through as well. ZMT here to join the fray, but the Petrifying Gaze is going to be able to hit him. He didn't have any mana, and he's not going to have any life left, as Diesel's going to be able to get an excellent unstoppable force into the backside. Sudsy trying to lay out some damage, but is not going to be able to trade. Scooped with an excellent flash over the wall, and we'll be able to spam the Happy Bee in peace.
5 members bot again. We see this from Striking Vipers for the second game in a row that all 5 of the members end up on that bottom side. side, where plays come through. This is off the back of the top lane play going awry at least a little bit. It's just a trade of lives here. And under the tower goes Pulp, who got flayed into the binding to start with. All of a sudden, this is really problematic. I will say the ultimate was denied from Diesel, wasn't level 6 yet. ZMT, I don't know what you're doing here because it gets stunned up immediately, but the level 6 just now comes in for Diesel, who's able to get on the back line, able to put pressure onto this team. Sudsy does good job trading damage, but not enough to carry quite yet. Scoop, thankfully, has 2 people without flashes chasing him. That is going to net first play and a couple of kills back into the side of Striking Vipers, exactly what we saw last time. It does potentially cost them at least a little bit, because the whole point of Step top laner killing off Malphite under his own tower was to deny minions, and Diesel did TP away as Blossom's here to cover, but I don't know that they win this fight.
Yeah, I don't know if you do at all in this case, man. Diesel's here in the wings, but doesn't have the ultimate. Step top laner has been burly and laying out the damage, so that's just going to be able to get an excellent miasma to cut off any path of victory they may have. Step top laner away from everybody else, has the flash available, is going to be able to jump onto Mento, but is going to be turned into a cute cuddly squirrel. It's going to be the death of Blossoms, though. Step top laner going to be able to get out of that, and now Diesel's over here onto the side having to make a swift retreat. Mento's going to get caught out, and that's a double kill going over to Sudsy.
Again, you got to be careful if you're Striking Vipers, because in these situations where, like, you've got Cassiopeia and you've got even, like, you talk about Kindred, you talk about the damage that comes out from the set earlier on into the game, they have really high damage to begin this game. Like, you can't play into that if you don't have the perfect setup. And right here, Ultimate's not available for Diesel, so you're challenging already. This blue buff doesn't go over to you, so you're already in a rough position. Now, Step top laner was in really precarious place because there was no place to exit, but it looks like we're back to some action might be happening here on the bottom side.
Yeah, they're looking at it. I think it was just that we wanted to see the B. JK, it's a top lane solo kill. Diesel on a killing spree. As, oh wait, the action's going on into the bot side. He's going to find living, going to be a squirrel, not the life that they had dreamed of, but it's going to be the wild growth as Scoop is just going to be laying out destruction in front of their path. That's going to be a kill going over to Blossom. The flash forward with the soul shackles is going to be able to connect onto both of them. Plus, it's just going to be able to get out of range, and that's going to be the Kaisa finding the kill. Living in misery, going to take a heaping amount of damage there from the true damage, but not going to be a kill secured as Plus just has the back away.
Nicely played from Mento right there. There was the immediate play, like you see what the Juggermaw actually does when you talk about the combination of the Lulu and that old name that I'm sure. What is going on right now?
What's just dancing on Mento? This is constant. Go away.
This is their stop key in the middle of the wave, and neither of them have mana, so it's just an auto battle between these two characters at level 5. I don't know what that was. Okay, that was shenanigans, and that's the definition of what shenanigans is if you look it up in the dictionary, but goodness gracious, I don't know what that was. Back in the mid lane, though, as we see a couple of members coming for the play onto Sudsy.
Blossoms,
doesn't exist. Nope.
No, didn't exist. We, laning phase, as you can see, laning phase is just happening. ZNT laying in, getting some damage laid into them by Sudsy there. That's all that happened. Nothing else to be seen.
Not at all. Which is quite nice. There's that to consider. The ultimate was necessary from Sudsy, I'll say that. It was to make sure that he stayed alive during that play. He
used ultimate? What?
Yeah,
I didn't see him do that.
He used ultimate. It was necessary, though, because if he hadn't, then the Thresh might have hooked him. So it was really, really rough position to be in. As the roam also from Flux cost... I was going to say cost Scooped his life, but he did trade it for living in misery.
Yeah, he did trade it. Step top is going to be able to lay out some damage with the Haymaker. Is going to be able to jump on the Diesel and finds the solo kill. The unstoppable force wasn't as unstoppable as he so seemed as Diesel goes down. There's a lot of action happening in this game in comparison to the last one here in the early parts.
It is, and it's tipping back into the favor of Revival once again, who sit on a 4,000 gold lead. You have the 35 CS advantage in the top side. You've got 3 kills on Sudsy in the mid lane on this Cassiopeia. You actually have 4 stacks as well of the marks here on Kindred, which is huge because that's the range advantage you've gotten already. So you're in a really solid place in terms of that for the Kindred to begin the game with. This earlier game comp where you have all of this damage to work with and all the damage champions is working for Revival because of all this fighting that's occurring. This is what happened in the previous game. And they're on momentum again.
Mento caught out of position yet again and immediately gets hurt for it, man. This is just brutal. Pulp is absolutely just bullying Mento inside the jungle, and this is why we've been seeing this rise of Kindred.
That it is. Got buffed a little bit. Some of the champions that was bad into, so like it's kind of tough to play Kindred into like Udyr or into Hecarim, and those have been brought out of the meta. So now that it's AP junglers, you can aggress against early junglers, which is what Kindred is for playing aggressive in the earlier stages. So now that you have squishier AP junglers like Morgana and Diana and Elise and things like that have stepped back in, there's a possibility to play our favorite ADC. Not the same way where you had that infinite stacking on those marks before where it gave you a bunch of on-hit damage, but at minimum, Pulp is making the most of it by getting praise around the map consistently. They take back a dragon and even that dragon count to start. I will say this seems like Striking Vipers aren't in a bad position. Flux with the ultimates.
Yeah, has to use a wild growth on themselves here. Blossom looking to just add to the kiting for the team, but Pulp is continuing forward here. We'll be able to find them, and that's going to be a good amount of damage coming out, and that nets a kill for Pulp.
Does not happen without that mark upgrade. So really, really important that 4 stacks have been achieved by Pulp, because if he didn't, that was a nice Thresh ultimate by Blossoms to shut that out. The move speed wasn't going to be enough, but that Q and auto attack range was just enough to bring down the Kaiser, which now also opens up Scoop and Flux to be able to take that bottom tower.
Flashing forward for burns the flash a ZMT, but Sudsy ever so aggressive, keeping this ultimate on cooldown.
And he is. Loves to see it in black and white, apparently. But again, it's working. ZMT gets slowed down. He absolutely dies there if he doesn't end up flashing. Blossom's going to try to make a hook happen over the wall. Sudsy's ready for it. Man, Sudsy has absorbed quite a bit of pressure, actually, into the mid lane. That's the bottom tower going down. Free gold given over to Scooped. In fact, actually Flux back to make sure that was solo gold coming through. 3 plates down on the top side where, Step top laner's doing some pretty good work. Now getting another potential play into Diesel.
Oh, yeah. Sudsy caught out. Is going to eventually, finally go down. They had to land one of these Q abilities sometime, man.
Yes. Unfortunately, burning your flash with an attempted ultimate, that's not even going to be a stun to slow someone down to try to kill them. I think that's the definition of flying too close to the sun. I'd have to check my books, but Diesel might have gotten a little too far up. That ultimate, not used in the right direction for a Malphite, but it does get him out in the proper situation. You always want to use it aggressively, but if you have to use it defensively, it's much better than flash. So respect to Diesel burning that one, but again, Step top laner just completely owning this top lane at the moment.
Yeah, and it's even like, I feel like the biggest thing to take note of, too, is even though we've seen a lot of pressure, and I kind of want to go back to this point because we have seen this Thresh roam quite a decent bit now, I feel like the Lulu has actually had more effective roams at this point in time. In the game.
Yeah.
And that's not what you want out of a Thresh. And I feel like Blossoms definitely is going to be feeling some of that pressure as we continue to go throughout this game, because this Lulu has not roamed as much as the Thresh has, but has had more success, it feels like, or at least it feels more successful because there's more to come out of it. And this is just Step top lane is looking at this Kai'Sa like it's a juicy snack.
It is. Ultimate, or my apologies, not Burt right there. So it was just the W keel to come through from Blossom. Trying to hold this as Scooped is on top side. Now actually going to throw auto attacks into Diesel. This is a 1v1. I don't know that Scooped wins because of the tankiness, but the Kraken Slayer is there. The ultimate, the magic damage. Can he get it?
Well, you're cut off here. That's it. Pulvis just stood there menacingly at him. That's all he needed to do. That is going to be a tower secured at the bot side for this, but in the top side, Revival get another objective for themselves.
And Rift Herald to come off the back of that. And mid tower also went down, and that's going to mean that Sudsy's able to push in mid lane pretty far as ZMT was on the bottom side of the map. Not to mention, it opens up the mark tick here. If you can see, the Wolf Camp's actually marked right now by Kindred, so that's going to be another one into his favor if they're actually able to shove up far enough. Mid lane's already there, top lane's now there. Rift Herald's going to be going their way. Backs from the ADC and the support means it's unlikely. Pulp, if you go extending for it, could get caught out by ZMT and Mento in the right situation, but it seems like the cover from Sudsy is just enough. As you saw right there, Step top laner slowed down the two from Living in Misery and Blossoms to stepping to the top side of the map, or maybe they could contest the Rift Herald, keeping them there just long enough to make sure that their back timer wasn't in sync with that. Means that Pulp walks away with Rift Herald. They ended up walking away, I think, with that mark as well, as it just went off the map. Yes, he did. As well as, the top kill that's going on too, and the solo tower gold for Scooped as well. Revival, we talked about hitting. How, man? Every single ult. It feels bad. You don't want to see a Malphite ulting backwards ever.
Yeah, it's honestly just...
Bad.
Yeah, it's been a bit of a rough game for Diesel here. 70 CS in comparison to the 125 of Step top laner. And honestly, even though we did get to see a solo kill come out from Diesel, has been kind of stuck in this area where they're not able to do as much. Has the Chem tank, by the way, here. Rift Herald, I believe that was a mistake. I don't think Pulp meant to do that.
Yeah, they were warding right there, so I'm almost certain that Pulp accidentally pressed that. But they could just throw a mid lane anyway. They're going to put some pressure onto mid tower, force perhaps a little bit. Malphite's in bottom lane, absorbing the wave right now, so there's no team fight to come through, which is...
Look at this damage from Scooped here! Blossoms, you're in there by yourself, man. It's going to be Scoop flashing forward. No Lulu buffs needed here. Laying in the damage for the team, and that's going to be 2 towers secured off of that. They are breaking this game wide open as they're looking for more victims.
Hail of Blades, Max W, Kraken Slayer, all these additional damage sources, man. It made it so difficult. Living in Misery almost got run down right there by Kog'Maw under their own tower. And now even Step top laner's in a rough situation because here comes Sudsy and Plux in different directions.
Yeah, he is going to find himself getting face broken, damage being laid out. The miasma is crippling. Sudsy finds it. And that's going to be a kill with a Ocean Drake secured on the side for the side of Revival.
Yeah, the problem this time is this isn't as much a pure 5-on-5 from the side of Revival where they can take these big fights. So instead, they're sticking to these skirmishing routes that Striking Vipers got caught in last time. The difference is now that they're all damage champions, whenever you get equal numbers, you're just winning. And even now, I don't love the fact that this is going to be happening. Blossom's trying to make it happen either way.
Oh, Sudsy, look at the turn it around. Blossom's going down. Sudsy playing out of his mind there. He's looking for possibly another one. Damage from Panda Minions! He finds the 1v2! Sudsy is a god!
That was 1 Q and 2 E's for the whole health bar of Living in Misery, man. Your name is perfect for the way that this series has played out. Oh my goodness, Sudsy with the clutch 2v1 on the bottom side. This is what we're talking about. When you're playing into these high damage carries who have this gold advantage, there's no way to play. Diesel's going to get an ultimate. Didn't it scooped?
Yeah, Scoop is just free hitting right now. You got the Lulu, but was it worth it? What did it cost you? From the side of Striking Vipers here is Scoop looking to make the answer be everything. Is still laying out the damage. It's going to be them getting taken for a wild ride. Step top laner finds a kill. They find the Thresh, and now only 2 members of Striking Vipers are here to try and defend their inhibitor, but Scooped and Pulp are going to make quick work of this tower.
They're losing too much off the back of these plays right now. Our Striking Vipers is every time there's a play going awry. Ultimate's available.
Yeah, drop down very low here. Kai'Sa does do a considerable amount of damage. Pulp has to flash into the bush to get away from vision, and now Living in Misery is looking to try and get a little bit more there. Is going to be able to find 1 kill. Nothing else. Wasn't able to follow up onto Pulp.
Like I said, like Striking Vipers finally find an even trade and push them back from this mid inhibitor where like there could have been play coming out from Revival, but there's so much being lost across the map. In fact, actually that tower take right there was the huge play that shifted everything back to Revival yet again in just that one fight instance alone, despite everything else they pull off the map. Every time Revival's winning these skirmishes, they're getting dragons, they're getting objectives, they're getting towers, they're pulling more members off the map, they're pulling more members into fights that don't want to be there, and this gold continues to trickle into their pockets. You see advantages pretty much across the board entirely as now it's Sudsy yet again bullying people.
Petrifying Gaze being used. Going to use the Realm Warp to try and bait Sudsy a different way, but the Wild Growth is going to be there. Sudsy is just 1v5, and he's buying so much time and finds a kill. He's still alive. Diesel hit nobody. It's going to be a double kill that comes through as Sudsy is able to claim more victims on the list. That top laner now on the backside is going to be able to find a double kill. Is looking to make it into an ace. Diesel will find himself going down. That is an ace in favor of Revival, and they're going to bear their fangs down onto this mid inhibitor.
There are 5 members here, but that was not a team fight at all. That was effectively a 2v5 into a second 2v5 or a 1v5, even depending on where you want to split it. And actually, at that point, it was like a 2v3 in that particular sense with Step top laner. But Sudsy clutches with the Lulu, throwing so much damage in. There's just too much skill. There's too much gold in the pockets of this team. They're going to bring down the Nexus. And Revival show us what the previous split second-place team can do. Okay, they're going to make me eat my words here in the last I had to do it. I had to get out. It is what it is.
Look at this. They're looking forward to Striking Viper says, we will make this into an ace for ourselves. Grabs the Casio. It is just Step top laner left alive. They're trying to find them, but they are not going to be able to secure the kill. Step top laner might just run back to the base at this point, but no. He's just going to make it. He's going to do some Is he going back into their
ultimate. I think he's going to turn on a Diesel. Oh, no.
He's going to be able to lay out that haymaker. It's laying out a good amount of damage here. Diesel is a pretty tanky lad. Has the ultimate. Is looking to be the showstopper that he knows he can pay. He needs to land one more punch. He does it. That's a shutdown. Diesel is going to be able to secure that while that all happens. Baron was secured by the side of Striking Vipers. They refuse to lay down here. Look at that Nexus. It's as healthy as can be.
Yeah, keep your eyes though. There's a TP where Sudsy's now heading towards bottom lane, and if he's Black Tones over, there's no chance that Malphite's gonna be able to spot that out. That's a rough situation if that ends up going. This was a fight. Look at the Nexus. You're like one auto attack away. You end up losing it. There were plays across the board. Nice TPs from both solo laners here. End up catching out. And I like that they didn't chase step top laner. Another fight around red buff, though, as they know this team is still much stronger in terms of gold. Nice Baron take from Striking Vipers. Might stall this game out to second Baron or something like that. But in the meantime, Revival, they can take this third dragon. They can set up for fourth dragon if they need to. The problem is from this point out, even after that kind of stall of the rest of the game, you're always going to be down your Nexus towers. You're going to be down the inhibitor in the mid lane to have to push out. And you're going to now be at soul point as well against this team with so much damage. You have to find these perfect situations like you just found in front of your Nexus to continue these fights, because at the moment it's really difficult to slow down this game. Heck, Revival could just walk it down mid lane with 5 members and hope they don't get Malphite ulted, because if Diesel misses, that could just be a wipe coming through from Revival in a series going their way.
Yeah, Diesel gonna be looking for the call here. They're trying to see exactly if they can find the angle. See if we can hear Hut Hut hike. As there we go! Hits no one! Diesel goes back into the back of his team. Is going to find a lot of damage being put onto him. As Sudsy's going to be able to find the kill on Demento. But this fight is getting turned around. The Kaisa is free, hitting inside to the backside. Is going to be able to lay out a good amount of damage. But now there's nobody left alive to keep the Kaisa alive. They're not even going to live to deal with them. They're letting the minions deal with them. It's ZMT against these two. Sudsy and Pulp, though, are just going to get those. It's going to be them finding this game for themselves. ZMT cannot beat them both. And that is going to be Revival finding a 2-0 here.
It's taken the entire split to finally put back the majority of their roster together, but Revival, our second place team from the previous split where they had a different bot lane, they've come back together and they're looking as dominant as they did in the previous split. Amazing stuff from this squad, looking like the team that was at the beginning of Proving Ground, so they were testing some of the best teams in terms of their play, being able to beat teams that probably they didn't deserve to beat, things like that. They're showing us how good that they've been in previous splits in different tournaments, and it took for a second, during that last split, they were a little bit fallen off, but I gotta love the way that they've come back. They're looking like they're incredibly dominant selves yet again.
I mean, dominance is the word for it too, because if you look at it in terms of objectives, yes, Striking Vipers were able to grab a couple Drakes here and there off some early fights that did happen. I think in total inside the series, Striking Vipers, which is not a weak team by any means, we have this whole story about how they flipped themselves around from their previous season here in the UPL. You turn around and look at them, they got one tower inside of this series, I do believe. Inside the entire series. And that speaks not to Striking Vipers being weak. It speaks to how Revival played the matchup and took control of every single game after they found it.
The openings that were given from Revival weren't super easy to collapse on. And the problem was also that when you break this game into individual lanes, Revival just has incredible lanes when it comes down to it, when you compare them up against the side of Striking Vipers. So it's nothing against Striking Vipers and their ability. They've developed as a team. I'm super happy that this team was able to make a playoffs, especially out of the group that they were in. But Revival's looking like a different animal right now, potentially considered one of our best teams, if not the best team in the entire tournament. And you see the difference that can be made when you're not able to put your team into a cohesive bunch and instead had to play out these lanes for an extended period of time. How many times did we see top lane go really heavily towards top? Sudsy's absolutely flexing in mid lane. Everything is humongous. So big props to Revival. Striking Vipers, big steps being taken by this team little by little. If they continue on this trajectory, they'll be the number one team next split, because they went from losing, now they're in playoffs, next is just winning, and then they go on and just win the LCS, and then they go to MSI for us and don't lose like C9 did.
Basic math, stomps, it's all there, but Revival was the team to be able to pick up the dub there. With that being said, Revival looking ever so dominant. We are going to say adieu and head on off, but we have our guest to be able to break down the action and tell us exactly how everything played out. So, ladies and gentlemen, take it away.
And welcome back to this. Thank you very much, Rebel Fox and Travesty. Striking Vipers struck back. Their fangs were bearing. The venom was good, but it seemed like a revival had the antidote to everything they did. So to that, I just want to say, yo, to a revival, bro. Sheesh! Well done, guys.
Sheesh.
That meme's dead. I
That
refuse.
meme will never die. I say it too often. My friend's infant daughter says it. It will never die.
Which is the greatest thing, though. And
It's the
as soon as
greatest thing
she
in the whole
does,
world.
I really want to sing.
I'll do it for
drop
Kari,
the
and the stream
roof
can
and-
hear me.
Drop the roof and
Sheesh!
drop the roof and let the smoke clear. So Revival came back in a very strong way
did.
here, guys. But Striking Vipers too, like we were talking about before, this is a much closer game than the last. And when we're talking to them, right, they're a very scrap-heavy team. They like to skirmish, they like to duke it out. They want to go into the Pentagon. It's just like Khabib and Conor McGregor. But today, Revival was Khabib. Here we done.
Yeah, that's pretty accurate. I'll go with that one. So it's funny you mentioned that too, because there was a lot of scrapping in this game too. A lot of fights that maybe Striking Vipers probably didn't want to take. It's funny that you ended up using the Venom reference, because of course Sudsy on the Cassiopeia was the one doing a lot of work. You saw a lot of invades. As soon as there was that bit of an early lead there from Pulp, they immediately started capitalizing on it, invading, trying to steal camps away from Striking Vipers. And every time they tried to bite back, it ended up biting them in the behind, because then you get extra gold in players like Sudsy, Cassiopeia, who did a lot of damage, big hyper carry in that game. And kind of like in game one, once the early gold starts going Revival's way, it's usually a lead they never end up letting go from. And of course, you got to give some props to Concept too in the top lane.
You do indeed, which is why, because honestly, within that matchup, you know that Diesel was consistently wondering, pondering, pontificating, absolutely confuzzled as to what his lane partner was doing and why. And unfortunately, there was such a larger gap between the two, because honestly, Set is just such a fantastic matchup into them, which is because he was going to ask himself, what are you doing, Step top laner? Which is why he is our MVP for this match. There you go. You happy? I did it.
He was winning the game. That's what he was doing.
He was winning the GD game. Well done, Step top laner.
You do everything, and you do it so well here. And
Such a good shop. Oh, I love it.
Works absolutely fantastically. But Kari, your closing thoughts on the series?
I thought that this last game was closer than the preceding one, and I think that is thanks to some good aggression and some good efforts on the part of our beloved Vipers. But you also need to know when you're like in bad terrain for a team fight, like a chokehold. We were talking about corridor fights, not favorable fights in that regard. I think other than that, the newly found aggression that we saw was pretty good, but you still have to be the ones calling the shots and not responding to them, because generally if they're putting you up to fight, they've figured out something that you haven't, or it's an unfavorable fight. So next time, be the leaders, not the led,
And one thing I want to add towards the end there is, I think all said and done, even though Striking Vipers make their exit here, we got to give them a lot of credit for how far they've come. I can think as far back as Risen's Tier 2 tournament back in like January, where things didn't look so good. Last season of UPL, things didn't look so good, but the shift they've made in such a short time is absolutely worthy of praise. So even though they can't get past the quarterfinals, still really good work for them over the last little bit of time. And now I'm looking forward to see what they're going to bring to us next split and beyond too. Maybe even Proving Grounds reappearance as end of the month, starting back up again.
Yeah, that is some meteoric improvement though. Genuinely.
Yeah.
Like you don't improve that much between seasons ever. Like that's genuinely something they should be proud of. So I mean, I want to see what they have given, another month or two of practice. I think we're going to see something scary coming out of these ones.
Do definitely agree with you out there, like we were mentioning, because this right here for Striking Vipers is a passion-led team, right? It's only just them putting their blood, sweat, and tears day in and day out
Mhm.
without any fun for anyone whatsoever, too. So that on its own, you should see it like you mentioned, be the beatdown from one split to the next. Though
Yep.
to see their rise is genuinely impressive, and I, for one, as well, like you all, cannot wait. I'm literally shaking to see how far they're able to make it. Though a definite Cinderella story here, Hyper, like you're pointing out, right? And I think the only place to go from here is just up.
And really quickly, Ravi, let me just cut in and say too, speaking
What's
of
up?
going up, let's talk about going forward real quick, Ravi, because we gotta, of course, talk about Revival too and how well they played this series.
Insane.
And I want to they actually looked really good today, and it feels like Pulp, as their new jungler, is really starting to mesh well with the team and their play style. So now, also looking forward for the rest of this split going into semifinals, I actually can pretty confidently say we'll probably see another top 2 appearance there, another grand finals appearance from Revival going forward too, if they continue to play like this.
I generally would not doubt it, right? We know how they love their flex picks, and they really do back up what they claim. Which, by the way, just a complete side note on that as well.
Yeah.
We've seen that. I mean, Striking Vipers were playing up against Cassiopeia on the other team, bro. So that's
The
why
irony.
the balance was off. That's why it wasn't working, bro. Y'all gotta be able to think about all this. You're not the big brain that I am, unfortunately. But
Of course.
that's okay. Going into next week, I'm sure you all will improve. But I do want to thank you all for watching as well. And I believe, actually, real quick, we're getting word that their opponents might be AoE Brady or the randoms as well. So it should be a fantastic match. But that'll do it here from us. Hopefully, us Premier League for this week. We'll catch you next week, Thursday, for the semifinals, which will be our first best of fives going in to the season to be able to end it off as well. Appreciate Beatdown Boulevard and Kari as well for coming on the desk. Of course, our casters, Travesty, Rebel Fox, and our production team Hates Me and Hypertension. Always make us look good. Thank you all for watching as well. Remember, we'll be back at you in just 6 days, so don't go nowhere. We'll catch up soon. Peace.